Hey everybody, it's Ron. We want to do some quick housekeeping. Click on the subscribe button, like our video, and also if you want to get notified, click on the alarm button. And also, if you're listening to this on podcast, please give us a 5-star review. It helps us move up the charts so more people notice. Welcome to the Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ron Swallow.
I'm Ed Greer, and today we got a humdinger of an episode. We got a man on here that honestly he's living a couple of aspects of my dream already, and we're gonna talk to him about some thoughts he has that I frankly share very much so. He's worked on the Schmoes Down. He is a filmmaker. He is an editor. He'll tell you about his latest film that's making the rounds on the circuit right now. And he's a great podcaster. I have done his show, The First Cut. It's a podcast and it is a YouTube show. Phenomenal. My Blade episode is one of the favorites, and I'm glad he invited me on there because I really had a bunch of opinions. But anyway, this dude doesn't need further introduction. RB3, Robert Butler III.
Yo, what's good? What's good? Happy to be here. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. What an amazing introduction. Wow, I feel way more official than I actually am, you know?
I like it.
Well, I try to do that. It's a recurring theme. But you know what? I figure I give people the intro I would want, and I give people the intro that they already deserve in my eyes and will deserve in everybody's eyes soon enough. That's why I try to do it.
Absolutely. Also, I love that you have a third at your name. I'm a third as well, Ronald Edward Swallow the third. So.
Oh, okay. So you're RS3. RS3.
That's right. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's correct. I am.
Oh, dude, we got two football players.
I doubt that's gonna stick, but.
Dude, you should have originated that when you were a kid. That would have been smooth.
They wouldn't have just called me Swallow every single day.
Hey, yo.
Yeah. Good time.
Dude, I mean, branding, man. That's the crazy part about being a kid is you don't know branding. And the kids who know branding, they get over it. But and speaking of which, dude, Robert, I have followed your burgeoning career for a little bit because, like I said, I saw you as part of, Collider, like as a background figure in Collider, like either editing or shooting. I don't even know what you were doing over there. And then I started seeing you do your own things and stuff. And I was like, this kid, I almost got envious. You know what I'm saying? Like I was telling you earlier off air, you are living certain aspects of my dream, i.e., coming out of film school or coming out of school and getting a job in the industry and trying to start a presence and stuff. It was like just a dream when I was your age, and I love what you're doing with it. So like, let's talk to you about that. Like, what was it like coming out of school and like kind of getting into the industry of your choosing?
Well, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I definitely, it was definitely a lot. I worked a lot through college. When I was at Schmoes, I started at Schmoes Know, like the movie show, as a podcast, just as their intern. And then that's how I ended up working on a lot of Collider stuff. And even with Collider, I was basically like still doing like intern / PA level stuff. And then eventually camera operating when I started working, when the Schmoes Know show ended up becoming like the Schmoes Down, the movie trivia Schmoes Down. So when they were doing the trivia shows, now I started doing the camera operating and a lot of editing for that too. So I also worked a lot, like I said, I worked a lot through college. So when I graduated, I was still doing a lot of freelance stuff, but I was like really just like ready to just like get into working. So fortunately over the, past 10 months, I've been, permanently at this, not permanently, like, no, nothing's permanent, but I've been working for this company called Network. We're in the shirt for right here. And then, so that's been kind of what I've been doing. But yeah, a lot of it was like going to school and working at the same time, editing, like going to school by day, editing by night. That's what I used to call it. So,
yeah, it's one of those things where you're constantly working your butt off. We've talked about none of us are getting sleep ever right now. And it's because we do like 3 or 4 different things all the time, trying to like keep hustling and get better at everything we do. And I was going to say, like, experience is so important in your situation, because I kind of get the idea that like if you've been editing, even if you were just doing small projects here and a this or that, or adding a graphic here, all that adds up to when you finally go to the job interview. It's like, well, what have you done? Oh, well, I've done this, 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 and this, and here are examples of it.
Right. And it wasn't just editing too. Like editing is what I did for editing and camera operating was what I did for Collider. It's also what I did for his other YouTuber, Anthony Padilla. He's one of the co-founders of Smosh. Shout out to him. Always shout out. He's super, super, super dope. He had the show. He had this show called I Spent a Day With, and every episode he'll be like interviewing different people that were just amazing. Different amazing guests every week. So, but I did a lot of that through college. But also during the summers, I would also do like a lot of PA work. So I worked for like BET Awards every summer. I was in college, and then when I graduated from college, my last year, I did like 4 PA gigs like back to back to back. It was like BT Awards. I also worked for the show called Hip Hop Squares, and then another show, another VH1 show. I forgot what it was called. Country Music Squares, I think it was what it was. And then BT Hip Hop. So I was like just going from PA gig, and then after a while I stopped doing PA work, and I just ended up I ended up going back and working with the Schmoes Down because they started their morning like radio show. So
I listen to that sometimes.
SCN, yeah. So it was when it first started, it was literally just me and Christian. Like Christian called me up one day and was like, "Yo, I got this idea for a show." I was like, "Dope!" Like he would just host it, I would engineer it, and then it evolved into what it is today, and it's still going. But since it was a daily show, I just pretty much had to like not do any more PA work. So ended up doing that, but that ultimately gave me a lot of like technical directing experience, like how to like engineer a show, how to set up a show. So with that, with PA experience, with camera and editing experience, like, and with film school, like all of it kind of like coming together ended up getting me to where I'm at now, to where I get to be a producer at this new place, with this new place network. So it's really cool.
And then you also have your own channel where you discuss things and talk about movies and, really, really get into depth about like what you like and why you like it and all that sort of thing. How did you move into deciding to be like on the camera?
Well, man, I mean, honestly, that was also just through Schmoes Know show back in the day when they had their podcast. It was like super popular. I was just a fan. Like I tell them all the time, I was just a fan. The way I ended up interning for them actually was because in high school I was so much of a fan. They had the first like 200 some episodes, I think 100 some episodes of their podcast was on a different network called Toad Hop. And I guess they had like gone out of business, so you couldn't even listen to you could still listen to the old episodes because they had the audio for them, but the video was on the Toad Hop website. You couldn't just like download it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna like try and help out, like, just as a fan, like on a fan type tip. I'd screen recorded like all their old like podcasts, like all the 100 something episodes it was. I forget how many episodes it was. And synced them up with the audio and just did it for free, just sent it to them for free. That was just like, I was doing that like after school, high school kind of activity. So, and that was, but so then through that, like, and people like knew, like, but because I was like active in the fan base and the Facebook page, like when I ended up joining the show as like an intern, people were like, "Oh, yo, that's Rob. Like we know him from the Facebook." So then they, they just let me rock on camera for a little bit, like, off that. So I always loved like the commentary game, the review game, the YouTube game. I love film criticism in general. That's really what I went to school for. Even though I, want to make movies, I want to produce movies. I ultimately went to school for cinema and media studies, which is the art and study of cinema. So just analysis, writing, all that kind of stuff. That's ultimately what I'm like most passionate about. Like, if you put a gun to my head and ask me if I want to like make movies or if I want to watch movies, I'll probably lean to the side of like probably want to watch movies a little bit more. But I still like, I love like that is still like an ultimate passion for me to do both. Like I'm just one of those kind of people. Like I'm just not satisfied in doing both. And I also don't think I could be a fair or good critic in any sense if I don't at least itch the passion that I have towards wanting to make the stories that I want to make.
Well,
So
that definitely leads us to our de facto subject today, because we're gonna pop around in your life, because again, I'm I'm very like I like the way that you worked yourself into the situation that you're in. That's like a through line in your story that I think is interesting. Like, you decided to screen cap those things and video cap those things for those dudes. They didn't ask you to do that. You were a fan of them. You did it, and then you end up getting paid later because of something you did for free, which is what the new hustle game is. And I knew, as in, for the last 1,000 years, the way you
right.
really hustle is do some stuff that most people would get paid for hella good, like better than somebody who was getting paid to do it would do it for free first. And then find a way to have the people who have already gotten your product for free to value it so much that they give you money for it. Like, you learning that lesson as a young man, I'm telling you, it's going to help the rest of your life. Your 60, your 60 and another person's 60 are going to be different, as far as like when you're looking back at your lives, as far as all the stuff you've accomplished, because somebody who learns that lesson a little bit later, it's really hard to catch up with. Like, when you're in your 30s doing work for free, you just look like a fool. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's easier to start doing it at the age you were at, and then get into the money making game. You know what I'm saying? It's a smart move. And another thing I wanted to say is, I wanted to get your perspective on is, we had a brief conversation earlier about, like, obviously you went to school for criticism, obviously you went to school for film criticism. Do you think that affected your appreciation of film? Did it change how you see films? And secondary to that question, do you think it helped your career, your burgeoning career as a director and whatnot, going to school? Was it worth it, frankly, to the person listening? Was it worth it going to film school?
Right. I think film school is such like an interesting conversation. It's something that I like have thought about my whole life, because it's something that up until like my senior year of high school, it really didn't look like it was something I was going to be able to do. Mostly because I went, for a lot of my life, I was studying to be in the engineering field. I went to like math and science, middle school, high school. I was on like a bunch of science teams, math teams, AP calculus, all that kind of stuff. So I was really headed towards like an engineering route for like a lot of my life. But I've always loved film. Like, I always went to the movies, like, I always liked movies. And I just knew I wanted to do that. So like going to college, like, I knew I can just like spend 4 years doing engineering school, but I knew like I had to go to college. Like, my mom, like, definitely drilled that in me for like forever. And just both my parents wanted me to go to school. So if I was going to go to school for anything, it might as well be for the thing I want to do in life, which was film. Fortunately, I was really fortunate in the fact that I had like a full ride scholarship. I'm at the Gates Millennium Scholarship from I guess like Bill Gates or whatever. So then they gave me like they paid for the admission, so it really aided in the decision of me wanting to like go to film school. But for a lot of people like aren't in that position to like able to afford that, and I think that's ultimately where I get kind of stuck at it, because going to film school as a film fan was really amazing, because it gave me like a pointed perspective and a place to discuss film in a different light, and it gave me a pointed perspective as to where to look for new film. Like, in terms of, now I know there is some really good stuff in like 1940s Germany, or there is some like good stuff in 1960s Japan, or 1970s 1970s American films. Like, there, you have so much different perspective on film. So for me, like, as a film watcher and as a film critic, I would not be like as evolved like without film school. So I definitely appreciate that. But I don't know if you're looking to make film. I don't necessarily know if it's like the most essential expense, because film school is very expensive. And, you know, especially a place like USC, you really only spend like, if you're in the production program, which is extremely, extremely hard to get into, it's one of the hardest programs to get into, period. It's almost harder, if I'm not mistaken, it's harder to get into than Harvard Law. If you get into their production program, you're going to be spending the first 2 years of USC just pretty much doing normal college, but your last 2 years of USC making a lot of films, which is really good because you get some good practice, but it's really not great because you don't get a lot of industry practice. You don't get a lot of, you know, you don't get a lot of internships. And you don't get a lot of foots in the doors. You know, to me, what I just realized, like film school is mainly really good for, and plus, if you're not in production, the main way you know, you're not going to learn film just by sitting around doing nothing. You have to actually be on set. You have to actually participate in it. So, so I feel like the more valuable experience is like being in the PA game, being in the actual physical production world, and then learning how to like climb through that level. You know, I think film school helps in terms of like, you have like there's a little bit of a prestige to, like, you know, when you apply to things like, oh, you went to USC, da da da. But beyond that, the practicality, what you're going to learn is not going to be something you can't learn on your own. Or you could get, actually, instead of paying money to learn how to be on productions, you can actually make money by being on productions, by being a PA or being something, you know, on those real sets. Now, you won't be able to have the opportunities to direct your own things or create your own things, but you have to have the initiative to like kind of make those things yourself too, you know? So,
so today, the thing that we brought you here to talk about basically was, given how much you've just told us about your life in film and understanding your appreciation of it, we talked earlier, and it seemed like movie theaters and the movie theater experience of watching a film, movie theaters are the greatest escape to you and to a great extent to me when I started thinking about it. So we're gonna talk about that presently, and I would like to posit one thing. I had a conversation on, it's going to be on the Rebooted channel as a Commute Killers episode, and me and Billy Business talked about film, like who gives a shit about film, like film as like the reels of stuff, film as in the giant experience. We all have giant TVs, we all have surrounds, I love when that comes out. I'm not accusing Billy of classism, but everybody doesn't have the fresh TV he has or that I have. But anyway, the point is, it gets you to this weird argument, because if you have a big enough, dope enough home set up, it's better than some movie theater experiences for some people. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So there's a classism in that, but also there's a classism in being like, no, I want to pay $17 for some popcorn and a drink, and I want to pay $20 for a ticket in LA or whatever, and I want to be immersed in the movie and have it pouring over me for 3 hours, and I want people to shoot it on something that costs $1,000 a foot. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? There's all that classism. Yeah. So it's like on either side of the argument, there's some sort of classism there, where it's like, if you think it's cool to watch everything at home, your home theater must be dope as fuck. Or if you think that you must have a theater experience, well, you must got a lot of money to go to movies then. You know what I mean? There's this weird classism in either way of enjoying film. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, except for, but I will make this argument, and that's that the dollar theaters back in the day, and actually there's still a $1.50 theater down the street from us. Those can be just as rewarding. Yes,
absolutely.
The seats are a little bit stickier. and the sound isn't quite as good, and the picture quality maybe not as quite as good either. But it's still a pretty great experience to go and see a movie and really be immersed in it. And I'm just curious, when do you think you started that you knew that was the thing that made you really escape from all your problems or anything like that that's going on in your life, where you went to that movie and you were like, this is it. This is where I got to be to just be in this world for that moment?
Well, it's crazy because like I love movies like my whole life, like just on the, I guess like on the deep subtextual level, it has been my whole life, because my grandma used to watch like a whole lot of like karate movies, martial arts movies. She still does.
Nice.
Like a lot of subtitle Chinese movies, kung fu, all that stuff. And my mom like rom-coms. Like I was raised by my mom and my grandma. So when I was really little, I wanted to go into the acting game, but then like, that ended up working out when I was like little, like that's when I was like 6 or 7. And then I ended up being, I said a little bit earlier, like I was good at math and science. So I went to like math and science school, going to be an engineer. But it was really when I saw, and I've said this, I think it's in 2009 is when it came out. I think I saw it in 2010. Was the James Cameron's Avatar movie when that came out. I know a lot of people trash on it, but it was
beautiful.
It's a beautiful, gorgeous movie theater experience that like I was like, yo, this is mind blowing. Like IMAX, like I saw it in IMAX 3D when it like, I didn't see it when it first came out, like in December. I saw it like during like January or whatever. But it was such a beautiful immersive experience. And as somebody who was into technology and into engineering, to me, like that movie just like made the most like sense in the world. Like it was like both a awesome, for me, like at the time I was 13. So for me as a 13-year-old, oh, this is a really cool, great story mixed in with some really heavy CGI technology, 3D, like they're just kind of developing it's like engineering. It was kind of like both. It was like the best of both worlds for me. So, so that was really the movie that
Fern Gully at that point.
I hadn't seen Fern Gully at that point. I had seen Pocahontas. I didn't make the Pocahontas connection, but when people said the Pocahontas, I got it. Okay, I get it. But yeah, I and Dances with Wolves too. I get that one too. But I definitely like that was the movie. I liked movies before. I used to go to the movies for like on weekends, like by myself. Like sometimes my grandma used to just drop me off at the Paramount Theater here, close to Compton here. Used to get dropped off. I saw like Caroline. I saw a couple movies.
Nice.
We used to see, see a couple movies then. But it was really Avatar that really like kind of sparked that into like a full like, okay, this is really what I want to do with my life. And then beyond that, like from that point, like I'll maybe go to the movies like maybe once or twice a month and like maybe get dropped off on a weekend to see one or two. But after that, it became like almost regular practice where like every 2 or 3 weeks, like my mom would drop me off at the AMC Del Amo 18. I'm just put myself out there because that's like that's where I used to be at. Used to get dropped off at 10 a.m. in the morning, and just I would kick it at that theater. Movie hop from at least minimum 3, usually 4 movies back to back, and then leave at like 6 or 7 or something like that. So, or like 8. And
So
that used to be
babysat by the movies.
Yeah, no, literally, yeah. So there's a good run of like from 2011 to like 2015 where I pretty much saw like almost everything like theatrically. So that was my jam.
See that it's my dream. There's a theater out here. It's the AMC, I think 20 in Woodland Hills, right? Ron, that one we just went to, AMC 20 at the Promenade or whatever.
Yeah,
dude, it's in this dead. You know how nowhere is the skull of a celestial, right? This movie theater is like nowhere. Everything around it is dead or dying. There's a PF Chang's and some kind of restaurant like a football field away, but everything else, the mall that it's attached to, is just dead. So it's like inside this dinosaur skull is this theater. And it's so dying, dude. Like the kids just are listless zombies walking around in there. and some of them have a lot of personality because they have nothing but downtime. They're just kicking it in there.
There was nobody in that theater.
Dude, and I want to go to that theater. I want to get the Stubbs thing that Ron has or whatever, and go there so much that the kids start just seeing me as a piece of furniture in there, and then review the movie hopping experience because I had the urge. I haven't had the urge to movie hop in so long, dude, because I am too big and conspicuous. And the security guy always sees me coming up in there. You know what I'm saying? Can I come in with 2 popcorns and shit? You know what I'm saying? Back when they used to give you a refill first, I'd fuck around and have the refill in one thing and the popcorn in another thing, walk up in there hella fucking, they see me. There's not a bunch of movie hopping in my 20s and 30s. But yes, when I was a teen and I was younger, movie hopping was so fucking dope. I almost want to do it some more now.
I could do it right now. They don't even notice. I look like every bearded white boy that exists. And there's a lot of us. Like a lot of us. I'll bring a change of shirts. It'll just be one comic book shirt after the other. Just popping.
Yeah, and when they try to catch you, it's just like, oh, it's a white guy in a comic book shirt. And they're just gonna wrestle a whole bunch of dudes while you're squirting out the door.
It's gonna be perfect.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. But okay, but as far as it being an escape, so you just laid it out. When you go to the movies as a kid, you hop that many times, you see that many movies, you're entering worlds. That's why I think honestly, bro, and this is maybe some galaxy brain shit, so I will announce it as galaxy brain shit before I even say it. I think that's why kids of this generation don't balk at the multiverse, because it's just all of those different worlds going into vastly different spaces all the time. Being able to frankly look at everything, go from a horror movie to a sci-fi movie to a whatever on your phone. There's something to the choice that kids have now that lends to a lot more stories about the multiverse. When I was a kid, reading stuff like Warren Ellis's, I know he's canceled, Warren Ellis's Planetary and Authority in 1999 and 2000, nobody was talking about the fucking multiverse. Maybe Michael Moorcock fans and some people that really like super fantasy or super esoteric sci-fi.
Star Trek, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But Star Trek had one other world. The mirror universe.
The mirror universe, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even Star Trek could only conceive of one other world. And now we got stories that take place across multiple dimensions all the time. You know what I mean? But all I'm saying is all those different worlds, they are different worlds, because watching Rumble in the Bronx is different than watching Die Hard, is different than watching Conspiracy Theory, which is the only movie I've ever fallen asleep in. Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts' Conspiracy Theory. The unique distinction of I fell asleep in that movie. I won't fall asleep in anything, Wuthering Heights, anything. I fell asleep in it.
And I want to talk about the community, because you mentioned Rumble in the Bronx, and one of my biggest memories is going to, and this was also at the Cheap Theater in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think it was literally 50 cents.
Wow.
And they had dollar popcorns or 50-cent popcorns. It was just super cheap, and all the kids would go. And Rumble in the Bronx came out only in that theater. Actually, they didn't even have it in the big theater, and that theater was packed to the gills. And when the action started, people lost their fucking minds, because no one in Albuquerque had seen action like that ever. It was bonkers. People were jumping out of their seats and cheering and yelling, and it was wonderful. It was one of the first experiences I've ever had where I really felt like, wow, this is people are feeling this. You know what I'm saying? So, did you ever have anything like that when you were a youngster? Any movies that popped out like that?
I remember very distinctly when I saw the first Avengers movie in the theaters. It was Saturday. Saturday it came out, and I remember it was me, my dad, my little sister. The little sister, she was we're the same age pretty much, and we had. And it was just an early Saturday morning. Theater was packed out, super crowded. And, I remember when Mark Ruffalo, Incredible Hulk, had got asked a question from Cap, how do you there was something, what was it? How do you always stay, how do you get mad, or how do you
he was you might want to tell us that trick.
Right. Oh yeah.
or
Trick is
something
Cap.
like that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always mad, and then he does the Hulk out, punches the thing. I literally remember like the entire theater just like getting up and like clapping, like right then and there, like standing ovation type. Like that was like, yo, that was the most magnetic energy I've ever had. And just through that whole battle of New York and the first Avengers movie, just the crowd was just like losing it. Oh my god, da 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 da! Like it was just going nuts, you know. When they finally
That's
did the
awesome.
big circle shot, like of the Avengers, it was just like it was different. So,
Well, dude, I saw. I'm gonna age myself, but I was a kid, like a real baby kid, and I still remember seeing Die Hard. I don't in the theater, and I
wow.
don't remember. I don't remember anything about the movie because I was too little to understand what the movie was. I was like a little kid, but I did remember when fucking the bad guy throws off his sash or rather his towel over his head or whatever at the end, and he whips out the gat and he's about to shoot John McClane, and homeboy from Family Matters, Reginald Johnson, whips out the gun and shoots that guy. The applause break in the theater like made me like cry. Like I was like, oh, okay, that's enough. This is insane. There's too much going on. There's too much stimuli. Like people went nuts when Reginald Johnson shot somebody. That's how deep the propaganda is. But no, I can see what they were feeling in the movie. I can see what they were feeling in the movie, but it's also a giant piece of propaganda. Anyway, the point is, everybody was on the same wavelength, like you're talking about.
Well, and that specific arc is so interesting because it's such a simple arc. Yeah, I haven't fired this gun in the entire time I've had it, or whatever. Well, you might have to one of these days, and then he does, and it's for the right reason, and you know,
he makes the right call.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, how interesting is it that one small sentence set up an entire arc that then created a standing ovation in that theater. That's what to me is so amazing about art, and why it's such or film and movies in general is why it's such a great escape. Is that like just a few sentences can set up a thing. One scene, for instance, the scene in Ultron, which is not even that great of all the Marvel movies, but where the hammer moves a tiny bit. Sets up that moment when he gets the hammer in Endgame. Like,
right.
And that's what's crazy about good filmmaking is like you can pay off something, and if you really think about it, you set it up and you pay it off, and that is beautiful.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best kind of execution. Honestly, that's what I think people should be aspiring to do. I think that a lot of the best filmmaking out right now, I feel like, I mean, you know, obviously Marvel does an incredible job of like the serialized storytelling and like keeping it consistent through like multiple platforms. But I think almost on like I think almost, you know, just television in general is just doing a remarkable job of like having these incredibly like great arcs just like pay off from like, you know, season 1 to like season like 5 or 6, you know, just land in like the perfect space.
Well, that's kind of interesting that you bring up TV because I think I think TV being so good and so frankly cinematic right now is the only thing that's tricked people's minds up into thinking that the movie theaters ain't shit or the movie theater is something they can forego. Or, you know, and I obviously know that people, when they get kids and stuff, trying to wrangle kids to go to the movie theaters is a whole nother enterprise than just you and your 20-something buddy going to a damn movie. You know what I'm saying? That it's a totally different prospect. So all that aside, like, TV is more cinematic now, more engaging. The budgets are higher across the board, even though TV always has low budgets. The money that they're putting into certain prestige shows is fucking with movies for the first time ever. That's very significant. For the first time ever, there are shows that look as good or better than some movies on prestige networks. That's the first time ever. And then the shows that are just produced as good as any other show are so engaging these days because some great writers are doing some of their best work in that elongated format. But the thing I got to say about so special about the movies is the movies isn't for that shit, honestly.
Right.
The movies are for 90 minutes to 3 hours of dope shit to wash over you and for you to get to walk out of it into your life, not turn it off and get up and eat a burrito. That's not the same. That ain't even playing the same sport. There's something to being trapped with a movie, being in with it, you and other people locked in with it, and thusly locked in with it with your eyes and your feelings and emotions about it. There's something about that experience that is not approximated on any level by any other exhibition experience. And I just hate that the fucking air is poison and people are starting to forget that. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's just weird.
It's sad because the pandemic made us forget. Like, it really made us forget how crucial the movie going experience is. And, you know, like you said, the entertainment system's getting better. The movie tickets are going up. And there is kind of like this whole class divide with it. But I personally, for one, I have AMC stuff. So like, it's not really for me. I like you. Hey, like just like you, Ron. For me personally, the AMC stuff is honestly the cheaper decision in a lot of cases. Like in terms of like going, like I don't have to rent. I don't have to pay the $30 to watch Black Widow. I could just watch it for my stubs like 3 times a week if I wanted to, you know. Or
I went to Shang-Chi 2 nights in a row.
Yeah,
I went one with my girlfriend and then one with my buddy, and that was because I could. Sometimes you get to see something you wouldn't have normally seen. Like if you had told me I had to go pay $25 for Green Knight, I would have told you to go fuck yourself. But the fact that I got to just like go see it, and I enjoyed the movie, and I would not have thought I would enjoy that movie. And when I got to go, and there were parts I didn't like, but that doesn't matter. I enjoyed it overall, and it was beautiful. And I wouldn't have seen that movie without the stubs. I mean, without the $20 a month to see 3 movies a week. I can see 12 movies a week for 12 movies a month for $20.
Yeah.
It really can't beat it. And I don't have either of those things, and I saw Shang-Chi twice. So I guess that's good. Shang-Chi is good all around from this group of people.
Well, and I want to mention what you talked about, Ed, with how you immerse yourself in it. Because Ariel's my wonderful girlfriend, we watched movies like anybody else during the pandemic on our TV. But both of us love to play video games on our phones. And we did not pay attention to a lot of the stuff we watched. And that was not on her. It's not on me. We both did that. And I really enjoyed going to a movie afterwards when we finally opened up and were less scared of dying. I really enjoyed just being in the movie. That really was a great escape. It really was. Because for the hour and a half or 2 hours, we saw Black Widow. I think that was the first one we saw in theaters. It was wonderful to just watch the movie and be in the movie. Period. No phones, no nothing. At least if you're polite. I'm sure there's still some people who look at their goddamn phones in the movie theater, but those people should be, what's the word I'm looking for? Murdered.
Yeah, it's truly brutal. But what's some of the RB3? What's some of the stuff that you've seen recently as the pandemic broke, where you just like, maybe you stayed away from cinemas for a while, and then you broke your pandemic cherry watching them. Like what are some of those that you saw?
Well, just like Ron said, I think the Green Knight was one of those. And I think the Green Knight is definitely another one that I definitely would not have been immersed in if I was watching it at home. I would have been on my phone. I would have been checking Twitter every now and then or something. Or I might have even been looking up the plot, trying to explain something to me like as the movie was happening. That wouldn't have been great. But I do think that being in that enclosed space just really locks you in. So I say, like Black Widow was another one that I saw. I think the literal first movie I saw coming right out of the pandemic was this little indie comedy called Shiva Baby or Shiva Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like in May, if I'm not mistaken. Uh yeah, so and I've seen quite a few. I'm not gonna lie, I've been kind of on the AMC wave since the pandemic, since we've been able to go back into the theaters. But then we also had I saw Cruella. I talk a lot about Cruella. I like Cruella a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so having a good time going back to the theaters. I mean, having a good selection. The Suicide Squad is another one I saw in theaters
Amazing.
as well. So yeah.
Well, I've been
Yeah.
seeing horror movies with Ed, which I would have never thought. We saw A Quiet Place.
All
We
right.
saw, yeah, Quiet Place too. Yeah.
That's all right.
And poor Ed has to be next to me while I jump and yell at every single jump scare. I am your mark, guys. If you have the jump scare in your movie, I am your mark. I am the guy who yells and grabs things. It's pretty embarrassing. And then we saw Candyman, and that also scared the bejesus out of me. But apparently Ed has decided that I have to go be scared now with him.
Dude, no, it was just well, I had an assignment. I had to do a podcast. I had to do the meaning of on the First Cut channel with RB3. You know what I'm saying? And I had to do an episode of that. So I was watching the new Candyman flick, and you got dragged into the spiral. But I gotta say, that's another thing about like I don't think anything scares me when I can get up and just go make a salami sandwich in the middle of it. Like I don't care how scary you are. It's like, ooh, he's gonna get me. Hold on, gotta go make a sandwich real quick. You can scare me later. Like that ruins it. Like and even in movies that have that weird tone, like one of the movies that I remember from before the pandemic, obviously, but that really was like something where I straight up, if I had my phone, would be checked out of certain parts of it, was Mandy. There's a movie called Mandy by Panos Cosmatos, son of George P. Cosmatos, the director of First Blood Part 2 and Tombstone and a bunch of action movies. But Panos Cosmatos has like this weird tone poem thing he's doing with his films. They're like slow, and the soundtrack is like building up ominously while you're slowly zooming in on something, or like just weird shit like that happens. I would be on my phone and that bullshit. But being trapped with Mandy, it's fucking amazing. If you can't just get up and leave it, it gets inside you, and its rhythms get inside you. And that's the whole point of movies being the greatest escape, is like when something is taking up your ear holes and your eye holes totally in that manner and presenting you with any sort of story. You notice how through editing, movies don't even really have to have story. Like they talk about Eisenstein's theory of how do you show a guy going hunting? You show feet hitting the ground. You show maybe a gun being loaded in something, and then you show a lake. 3 shots. You know this guy's going hunting. He's up in the morning. He's got a gun. He's out in nature. He's hunting. You don't have to do him doing bacon, him folding up a map, him loading this shit, him putting on a safety orange hat. You don't need all those shots. You need 3 shots to show somebody hunting. And movies take full advantage of shit like that. There's so many movies with a subplot that's basically like 2 flashbacks that are 10 seconds long, and that's a whole subplot in a movie sometimes.
Now I know why you hate books.
Why?
Because there is no conciseness in that. Although you may love Stephen King. Because no, you wouldn't like Stephen King either. There's no conciseness in Stephen King either. It's just
nope. I was about to say that's a horrible example.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no. Who am I thinking? There's another horror writer who's literally all plot. Stephen King's the opposite. No plot, just a lot of description.
Yeah.
I can't think of the guy's name right now, but
dude, you're right. The books that I read when I was a kid were those Michael Crichton jobbies where they sold them in airports because you could be done with the motherfucker before you land. You know?
Yeah. Ed doesn't like when things take time. It should be concise and quick, and he does not need to hear how much a blade of grass is blowing in the wind. He doesn't need to hear it, and he doesn't want to picture it, and it's a waste of his time.
Until we
But
do
you
a
know what he does
podcast,
love?
and then I'll talk about it for an hour.
Yeah. It's pretty great. That's pretty awesome. But I like that. I like that. That is one of the great things about movies, because that's that hunting thing right there. That's a story that was told in 13 seconds.
Or
That's
3.
yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
that's impressive. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool stuff. Man, that's making me think I need to be at more movies than I have been doing, because you know me. I like to read the books for my great escape, and maybe I need to do some more movies for my great
Oh
escape.
well, that dude, I really thought of this real quick before RB3 weighs in. I just thought the reason why I knew you were going to say that in this episode, and I even fantasized my answer. Like when you have an argument with somebody in the shower and shit, you be like thinking all this shit.
Become
You gonna say-
correct.
right? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So like what I said to you in that little moment was like, there's so much. The great things about books are is that you're active. You're doing it. You're creating
Yeah.
it. You're draping. You're set dressing. You're directing. As people who only relate to things through movies always like to say, I'd like to say you're creating the world. Because when
Yeah.
you're creating the world, there ain't no fucking set. There ain't no lights on that princess. You're in the world. You're creating the world, and that's what's great about books. But something about the soulful artifice of filmmaking, where it's like they're presenting you ostensibly with the world, but they're only showing you it from this angle. Why are they only showing you from this angle? Because they're trying to put some mood into you or tell you something. You know what I mean? There's all
Yeah.
this sort of like pinpoint artifice of filmmaking that is totally separate from the sort of novelistic approach. And that's why movies are super great, though.
I think that's why people love, like, I think that's why there's people who are like addicted and love video games, like almost for the exact reason, but almost on the flip side, like video games give your mind a lot of they give you a lot of the resources, but they also give you a lot of interactivity. They give you a lot that you can play with. I feel like movies are definitely something that's much more of a passive experience, almost like music. Like music is, I feel like, probably the most passive way to enjoy art, because you literally don't even need to have your eyes open. You can just enjoy music with your eyes closed, and it's just you just listen to it. And movies is just one step removed from that, where you just only need your eyes. And sometimes you don't even need your ears. Like sometimes watching film, silent film existed for a long time. Sometimes watching films with sound and silence, you still get the same amount of visual storytelling. I remember a very distinct film memory for me that I would just always stick with me was when I was at CSUN before I went to USC. There was a dude who we were chilling with, and he was deaf, and and CSUN has one of the largest deaf programs like in the world, and he was but we were sitting there watching Mad Max Fury Road, and he was like really, really into it. And he couldn't hear like a single word. Like it was just all subtitles for him. Like, but he was like mad into it. He was more into it than like some of the other people were, just because of how much visual stimulation you could get from a story like that. So I think that's just to me that's what I take away from that. Like I love that aspect of film. Like I love that somebody who just wants to lay back and wants to turn off a little bit and be a part of something and a different world. That's awesome to me. So
another thing that I think is super sick about movies that I think gets to comics. I think that's where comics meet between novels and movies. That's obviously a very obvious thing to say, but as far as an immersive experience, there are certain comics that have their own language that once you start the active process of reading them, it starts to be like sometimes when you're like riding a bike. You're riding the bike and you're just sort of pedaling, but you're not really pedaling to go places. Your legs are just moving. You're in the rhythm of doing it. It doesn't feel as though there's any effort to it anymore. You've built up a certain momentum. That's what reading a good comic is like. Once you get down the visual language, you can just speed right through it and feel the kind of some of the shit with movies. But like movies are so great. Again, I would say movies are even greater than comics because it ain't just one or two people's arts or three or four, let's say if you count the letterer and the colorist. It's not four people's art you're seeing when you're watching Fury Road. You're watching 150 people's art. The person who stretched and dried Furiosa's uniform and made it look like it was worn in the apocalypse for 30 years, when in actuality they just bought it down on Melrose. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's all these different people's art, from the people who do that to the people who do the CGI later to the stunt people who are about to die so that it looks like Furiosa's doing this or that. You know what I mean? And Mad Max is doing this. There's so many people's art that you're seeing when you're watching a movie. That really blows me away, man. How many people contributed to how dope that is. That's why I always sit through the credits.
I was going to say, that's one of the things I've always done is I like to just read people's names. And sometimes it's because they have funny names. Not that Ron Swallow makes fun of people's funny names as a general rule. But also it's just like, I think about like the PAs. I think about the people out there who make this movie happen and how important each person in that in those credits are. Because without them, you know, that it might not get made. It might not be as good as it was. And that's what's impressive about movies a lot to me as well, is that it's such a community project. Every movie involves so many people, and each of them has a role to play that is an important part. And that's pretty incredible if you really think about putting together art that way.
Hell yeah! And as we round out here, I want to say to RB3, I'll give you a chance to talk about your film Timestamp, because I love to hear about people's movies, where they came from and stuff like that, and give a little plugs, or people as it comes around the cinema circuit, they can come out and check it out. But the bottom line is, when I see my own movies that I want to make in my head, I don't see them on a fucking phone. I don't see them on an iPad. I just don't. And when I'm wanting to envision what my art is going to be like, I don't envision it that way. It has nothing to do with, sometimes people can only watch something on their phone. If that's the only way you can watch it, that's got to be the world to you. And in that, I bet you could enjoy anything, any kind of way you want. You could create a whole world in your phone. I know people who do it. I know people who do it consistently. And, so that's great. But damn it, if you can see it in 70 millimeter, the size of a fucking wall.
Oh yeah,
it's just better. People just got to admit that, and then admit that they let themselves deal with lesser bullshit all the time out of necessity. That's a fine thing to say, but do not say that your goddamn phone experience is as good as watching it in 70 millimeter on a giant screen, because you're lying. You got to stop it. You got to stop it. You know what I mean? So all that being the case, I know that Timestamp is going around on different festivals and stuff. What's the origin of it, and what's it doing on the festival circuit?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was an idea me and my friend Kay we had put together back in like 2019, and we wrote it, we crowdfunded for it, and we shot it like late 2019. Worked on it all throughout the shutdown and pandemic, and it's and it's really special. We did our virtual premiere back in June, and now we got into New York Shorts International Film Festival, which is really cool. We're waiting for more announcements to be coming soon for other things that we've gotten into. But yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool short. It'll probably be debuting on Amazon Prime Video pretty relatively soon-ish. And yeah, it's going to be really great. I think people, if you're into time travel is it's about Jackie, the main character. Her name's Jackie. She witnesses her parents get murdered at a young age, and she tries to go back in time. Makes several attempts of trying to bring her parents back to life. So it's a really cool story. Hopefully, if people want to check it out, definitely follow me for more announcements. I'm sure there'll be information down in the description too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the whole journey of Timestamp. It was definitely we had a long post-production process, but it definitely paid off, and something that we're really proud of. So
that's awesome. How do they follow you?
And, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3, and you can follow our Instagram account at Timestamp Movie. So if you go on Instagram and type in at Timestamp Movie, you can follow our Instagram there. So
That's awesome.
That is really cool, man. Like I said, I definitely wish you guys much success over there at First Cut. And the meaning of, I like you guys' content. I like the fact that you guys are attacking things with, and I don't mean attacking as in giving negative reviews to things. You guys give all types of reviews to all types of things. I'm saying you attack your work in reviewing films with a lot of alacrity, a lot of hey, I gotta figure out how this is affecting me and articulate it to people. I think these days there's a lot less of actually articulating what something made you feel and you acknowledging why it made you feel that way. What are you bringing to it that make you feel that movie feel that way? I think there's a lot of criticism where it's just like, I don't get it, I don't like it. Meh. It's like, well, if I don't know who the fuck you are, I don't care that you didn't get it and you don't like it, you dumbass. Like, I need to know who you are and where you're coming from to care about your goofy ass reviews. And I'm saying with these guys, I care when they review something. I care to listen to what they have to say in a review because I feel like I know you guys a little bit. So that's always a good part of making content, dude.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So as we dismount, Ronnie, I wish we had some marching orders like cartoonist kayfabe. I could just say, Ron, say the fucking thing and get us out of here. But until we come up with something like that, take us away, Ron.
Sure. First off, join our Patreon. You get extra podcasts or you get art sent to your house. It's $5 for those podcasts, $7 for the art tier. It's go to patreon.com/thegreatestpod. Also, we mentioned it at the beginning, but let's mention it at the end. Subscribe, click the like button, and maybe click the bell so that you get notified whenever we go live, which at some point we are actually going to start doing. You may get some fun things like hang out with Ed and Ron time. So check it out, stay alert, and that's how you do it. Also, if you're listening to this on podcast form, please leave a 5-star review. It helps us move up in the charts. And with that, let me say thank you for listening to another episode of The Greatest Pod.